The fog rolled over the cobblestone streets of London like a living thing, curling around the lampposts and whispering secrets to anyone who dared to listen. Among the whispers, one name echoed through the ballrooms of high society: Duke Sebastian Blackthorne. His reputation preceded him, a man both feared and admired, known for his wealth, power, and a strange aura that made even the bravest hearts falter. Yet there was one woman who refused him, one woman who stirred something inside him that he had never known before. Her name was Isabella Fairchild, though everyone simply called her Ella. Ella was different. She did not care for the glitter of wealth, the titles, or the endless dances of politeness that the other noblewomen embraced. Her dark hair and bright eyes, combined with a spirit no one could tame, made her the subject of both admiration and gossip. But it was her refusal of the Duke that made her dangerous in the eyes of London's elite. The evening began as any grand ball in Blackthorne Manor did. Candles flickered against high ceilings. Chandeliers cast dancing lights across the faces of nobles, and music carried through every corridor. Servants moved like shadows, carrying trays of champagne and delicacies, while whispers of the Duke's latest exploits floated above the hum of conversation. Ella entered the grand ballroom with her usual grace. Heads turned as she walked past, not for the jewels she wore, but for the way she carried herself, confident, unyielding, untouchable. Sebastian, seated near the orchestra, felt the familiar pull of desire the moment his eyes landed on her. Yet unlike the other women who fell at his feet, Ella did not flinch, did not blush, and did not surrender. She was the only one who had ever resisted him, and perhaps the only one who ever could. He rose, tall and imposing, his presence filling the room like a shadow that could not be ignored. Whispers stopped mid-sentence. Even the music seemed to hesitate. Sebastian's gaze followed Ella as she moved through the crowd, her eyes scanning the room with curiosity and caution. "You should not be here alone," he said, his voice smooth, commanding. He appeared at her side before she could respond, a calculated smile on his lips. "I am always alone," Ella replied, her tone firm yet calm. "I do not need a protector, Duke." Sebastian's smile widened, not in arrogance, but in intrigue. Few dared to speak to him this way. Most would bow, curtsy, or melt under his attention. But Ella, she looked at him as though she could see the man beneath the mask, the darkness beneath the charm. And for the first time, Sebastian felt the stirrings of something unfamiliar, longing mixed with uncertainty. "Curious," he murmured, "that the one woman I desire is the one who will not yield." Ella's eyes narrowed slightly. "Desire is a dangerous game, Your Grace." He leaned closer, lowering his voice so only she could hear. "I am well aware, but some games are worth the risk." Despite herself, a shiver ran down Ella's spine. It was not fear, but something else, an awareness that Sebastian's presence carried weight beyond the physical. There was a power in him, dark and undeniable, that seemed to pulse in the air around them. She had heard whispers of the Blackthorne curse, a family legacy entwined with shadows and secrets, but she had never believed it until now. The night continued with dances and laughter, yet an unspoken tension grew between them. Sebastian's eyes never left Ella, following her as she politely declined invitations, avoiding the gilded traps of courtship. And Ella, while cautious, could not deny the fascination that stirred within her whenever he was near. Later, in a quiet corridor lined with ancient portraits, Ella found herself drawn to a painting she had never noticed before. It depicted a Blackthorne ancestor, eyes piercing, almost lifelike. A chill ran down her spine. Behind her, the soft click of footsteps approached. "You see the past, and yet you do not fear it," Sebastian said, his voice close enough to feel against her ear. Ella turned, startled but composed. "I see history, Duke. It teaches lessons, not curses." He studied her intently, as though trying to understand why she was different from every other woman who had crossed his path. "And yet you carry a secret," he said softly. "I can feel it." Ella's heart quickened. She had long hidden her family's secret, a latent gift she barely understood, one tied to the supernatural threads of London's hidden world. If Sebastian sensed it, then he was no ordinary man. "I do not know what you mean," she replied, steadying her voice. Sebastian smiled, a mixture of amusement and admiration. "Perhaps not yet, but one day you will see that our destinies are intertwined." The tension between them was like a spark hovering over dry tinder. Neither spoke for long moments, yet the silence was filled with unspoken truths and uncharted desires. As the night deepened, the ball reached its climax. Guests mingled, secrets whispered, and the Duke's obsession grew more palpable. In a private garden shrouded in mist, Ella stepped away from the ballroom, seeking the calm of moonlight. She did not notice Sebastian following at a distance, his eyes fixed upon her, the faint glow of his presence brushing against the shadows. "You cannot hide," he said, emerging from the fog. "Not from me." Ella's pulse raced, but she squared her shoulders. "I do not intend to be found." Sebastian stepped closer, the intensity of his gaze almost tangible. "And yet here you are. Perhaps fate is more persistent than you imagined." They stood in silence for a long moment, the mist curling around them like a living shroud. Then, a sudden rustle in the nearby hedges reminded them of the fragile line between the ordinary and the supernatural. Ella realized that the stories she had heard, of curses, of powers that could bind or destroy, were not mere tales. Sebastian's presence alone hinted at forces that were older and darker than London itself. "You are in danger," he said quietly, more to himself than to her. "And I cannot let harm come to you." Ella felt a flicker of uncertainty, a crack in her resolve. She wanted to believe she could resist him, control her destiny, yet a strange trust began to form. Not for the Duke, not yet, but for the man beneath the title, the man who fought against shadows she could barely comprehend. Before she could respond, a sudden commotion erupted from the mansion. Guests screamed, servants hurried, and a shadow moved unnaturally at the edge of the gardens. Sebastian's demeanor shifted instantly from fascination to command. "Stay behind me," he ordered, drawing her gently but firmly. In that moment, the world seemed to tilt, the night alive with whispers of danger, the air heavy with the scent of secrets. They faced the shadow together, and for the first time, Ella sensed the power Sebastian carried. It was not just influence or wealth, it was something far older, far darker, and terrifyingly beautiful. When the danger passed as quickly as it had arrived, Sebastian turned to her, his eyes soft yet burning with intensity. "You see now," he said, "that some things are beyond control." Ella met his gaze, a mixture of fear, fascination, and reluctant respect in her eyes. "Perhaps," she said softly. "But some things can be faced." Sebastian smiled, a rare, almost tender expression. "And you are unlike anyone I have ever known." The night ended with them standing alone in the misty garden, the distant lights of London shimmering like stars below. Both knew that this encounter was only the beginning. The tension, the fascination, the unspoken connection. It was a prelude to something far greater, far more dangerous, and far more inevitable than either could yet comprehend. As Ella walked away from the garden and into the waiting fog of the city, she could not shake the feeling that her life had changed forever. And Sebastian, watching her retreat, whispered to the wind, "You cannot escape me, Ella. Not even destiny itself will let you go." The shadows of the past and the promise of the future lingered between them, a delicate yet powerful thread that neither time nor choice could sever. And so the story of the woman who resisted the Duke and the Duke who could not resist her was only beginning. The morning fog lingered over London like a soft veil, hiding the city in quiet mystery. The night before had changed everything for Ella, though she could not yet understand how. The Duke, Sebastian Blackthorne, had revealed more than his power. He had revealed himself, a man trapped in shadows, both human and more than human, and yet capable of tenderness. Ella had returned home, her mind spinning with thoughts she could not name. She tried to focus on ordinary life, on letters to friends, on arranging her modest estate, but her heart was caught in the gravity of the Duke's gaze. She could not shake the feeling that their destinies were intertwined, that some invisible thread pulled her toward him even as she resisted. Meanwhile, Sebastian paced the halls of Blackthorn Manor, the weight of his obsession both thrilling and terrifying. He could not forget the way Ella had faced him, unflinching, brave, yet curious. Most women fell into fear or desire at his presence, but she had stared at him like she could see every layer beneath his carefully constructed mask. And he, for the first time, wanted more than possession. He wanted understanding, connection, and perhaps even redemption. Days passed, and London seemed to hum with anticipation. Rumors of the Duke's obsession grew louder, yet Ella continued to walk her own path, refusing to be drawn into the games of nobility. But fate, as Sebastian knew, was patient. One evening, a letter arrived at Ella's home, sealed with the Blackthorn crest. She hesitated, knowing it might be a trap or a test. Carefully, she broke the seal. "Meet me at the old Blackthorn garden at midnight. Alone. There is something you must see." Ella felt a shiver, not of fear, but of curiosity. She had spent nights wondering about the man behind the legend, and now he offered her a glimpse of truth. Despite every warning in her mind, she knew she would go. At midnight, the garden was shrouded in mist, silvered by the pale glow of the moon. The statues of long-dead ancestors seemed to watch her every step. She walked carefully, her heart beating in rhythm with the whispering wind. "You came," Sebastian said, emerging from the shadows. His voice was low, steady, commanding, yet softer than she expected. "I did," Ella replied, her voice firm, despite the flutter in her chest. "But only to understand." Sebastian smiled faintly, gesturing toward the heart of the garden. There, hidden beneath twisted ivy, was an ancient fountain, its waters still and dark. "This fountain," he said, "has been part of the Blackthorn legacy for centuries. It holds memories, secrets, and truths. Tonight you will see both." Ella watched as the water rippled unnaturally, reflecting visions that seemed almost real. Faces of the past appeared, some beautiful, some twisted in sorrow. And among them she saw herself, not as she was, but as she could become, a figure intertwined with the Duke, facing challenges and dangers, yet radiant with courage. "You see your fate," Sebastian said quietly. "And mine. We cannot choose whether our paths cross, only how we walk them." Ella took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his words. She had always believed she could control her destiny, but now she understood that some things were greater than choice. And yet, in that realization, a strange calm settled within her. Perhaps together they could face what the world had in store. In the weeks that followed, their connection deepened. Meetings in shadowed gardens, whispered conversations in quiet libraries, and encounters in fog-laden streets allowed them to explore the strange pull between them. Sebastian learned to temper his intensity, showing Ella his mind, his fears, and his hope for redemption. Ella, in turn, discovered the depths of her own latent gift, an ability to sense and influence subtle currents of energy in the world around her. One night, a threat emerged unlike any before. A rival noble, jealous of the Blackthorn legacy, sought to use dark arts to control the Duke. Shadows moved unnaturally in the corners of rooms, whispers slithered along the walls, and servants spoke of cold drafts that chilled to the bone. Ella and Sebastian faced the danger together, combining courage and the strange power that linked them. In the ancestral library, they deciphered ancient texts, uncovering rituals and protections that had lain forgotten for centuries. Sebastian's dark aura intertwined with Ella's light, creating a shield strong enough to repel the threat. In the aftermath, Sebastian looked at Ella with admiration and awe. "You are stronger than you realize," he said, "and braver than anyone I have ever known." Ella smiled, a mixture of relief and recognition. "And you are more than the stories say." Their bond grew not through luxury or romance of the ordinary world, but through shared trials, whispered confessions, and the unspoken acknowledgement that they were facing forces beyond ordinary understanding. They began to see each other not as predator and prey, as power and resistance, but as partners bound by choice and destiny. Yet even as they found moments of peace, shadows lingered. The Blackthorn legacy carried weight that neither could fully escape, and whispers of a deeper curse hinted that their challenges were far from over. The night was filled with stars, but the wind carried secrets, and in every shadow, a story waited. One evening, as they walked through the moonlit garden, Ella paused near the fountain that had revealed their destinies. "Do you ever wonder," she asked softly, "if we are choosing our paths, or if the world chooses for us?" Sebastian took her hand, his touch warm despite the chill of the night. "Perhaps it is both," he said, "but I do know one thing. Wherever destiny takes us, I will face it with you." Ella looked into his eyes and saw a vulnerability few had ever witnessed. She felt the weight of her own fears and hopes, and in that moment, she understood that their connection was more than fascination or desire. It was trust, understanding, and the quiet courage to face the unknown together. Their moment was interrupted by a sudden, sharp cry from the house. Sebastian's instincts, honed over generations, flared. He led Ella swiftly through the misted paths, every sense alert. A figure emerged from the shadows, a messenger of threat, yet their combined presence repelled him. It was a test, a reminder that their journey would never be free of danger. Yet it strengthened their bond. As dawn broke over London, painting the fog with pale gold, Ella and Sebastian stood together in the quiet garden. The world felt both fragile and infinite, filled with beauty and peril. They had faced shadows and whispers, danger and doubt, yet they remained, side by side, bound by choice, courage, and something neither could name fully. Sebastian brushed a strand of hair from Ella's face, his eyes soft yet filled with intensity. "You are my equal, Ella," he said, "in strength, in courage, in heart, and I cannot imagine a life without you." Ella's heart swelled with an emotion she had long denied. "Nor I without you," she whispered. And yet, even in that quiet declaration, a shadow stirred. In the far corners of London, beyond the reach of their gaze, forces older and darker than either could imagine began to move. Whispers of destiny, curses, and power echoed in the wind, promising trials yet to come. But for this moment, they had each other. They had chosen connection, trust, and courage. The world could wait. And in the quiet of the dawn, the first real moment of peace touched their hearts. Yet even as they held each other, the wind carried a soft, haunting message, a reminder that destiny is never still, and that love, no matter how true, must always face the trials of time, power, and shadow. This is only the beginning, and the world still waits for what comes next.